Hello and welcome to this special edition of State of the Economy. Today we have with us a distinguished panel of experts to discuss how nations manage their development projects in the age of economic globalization. Has India evolved the necessary institutional competence at the technical, social and political level to drive integrated national projects? This is the most critical to drive 8% plus GDP growth in the years to come. So, to discuss this, we have with us in our studio Mr. TK Nair, advisor to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, man with vast experience in governance. He's been through the UPA 1 and UPA 2 with this government, and we have Mr. Adesh Jain, who's a honorary national president of Project Management Association. Mr. Adesh Jain has also worked with China for the National Project Management Committee of China and has trained Chinese project managers. And of course, Mr. Adesh Sharma, former chairman of ONGC, who also as a PSU man has vast experience in project management. I'll begin with asking Mr. Nair one overarching question as to where does India stand today in terms of managing institutional alignment at various levels, political, social, technical level, to drive national projects?
Well, driving national projects and getting results out of them within acceptable time frames is the major challenge which both central and state governments have been facing, may I say, for a long time.
Yeah.
There's nothing new about it.
Yeah.
Project management, whether it is of individual projects taken up by a particular firm, whether it is in the public sector or the private sector, or a large project conceived and sought to be implemented by Government of India with the involvement of the state governments and other institutions, is the major challenge.
Sure.
It involves at all levels large coordination.
Yeah.
Actually, my own personal experience is that the most important challenge which this country faces is in getting these projects moving and getting them implemented on time.
And what are the hurdles that you see at the state government level or at this central level?
Well, this is not a simple question of say this is the hurdle or that is the hurdle. The hurdles are many, and some of them may be foreseen, some of them are unforeseen. To my mind, whether it is a small project or a large project, when you conceive it, you have to go into the details and you have to plan it properly. My own gut feeling is that at the planning stage, we have to be a little more careful in going into the details and making projections about that project.
Okay. Mr. Adesh Jain, now coming to you, you have vast experience in project management in India as well as abroad. You said you were on the Chinese committee on project management too. And you were telling me that in India, you have assessed the reasons why projects get delayed, and some of the critical reasons why projects get delayed according to your survey relates to land acquisition and environmental clearance, right?
Partly,
surely. So how does India fare in this regard with other countries? Because in a globalized situation, the world expects you to move projects at a certain pace, and if you don't do that, you lose out. And today, everybody is judging everybody else in a globalized environment. So,
no, I think it's a great question, I must say. Now, let me start with the land and environmental clearances, and I entirely agree with Mr. Nair. The front end planning, the planning at the conceptual stage, at the initial stage, that is the time when we could look at all the risk factors, because the world project has come from a Latin word, projectum, to throw something forward. All projects, social or the infrastructure manufacturing, is to build future, and that today, in present, we can do the future. That's the only thing, and we can go wrong. Risk management is 90% project management, risk management. Future is unknown. And therefore, coming on this land, there are a lot of stakeholders. We have to buying in the stakeholders. And unless we have the involvement of the stakeholders of all kind, then we get into the problem later on. So the point is, our planning is not so right to involve people and plan it out how much time will it take to do so, and put that into the project report. Not to rush to the board to get something clear and fast, and that it makes no sense to do things fast and later on get stuck up. And I entirely agree, the essence of good project management, like Japanese do, and Mr. Nair used to quote sometime, that the planning is important. Planning in terms of stakeholders, risk what can go wrong, and if we built up that in part of the team, communication, then during execution, we will be a little bit much better.
Something that they are probably doing in the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor. So how, Mr. Jain, when you compare India with China, I'm asking you this because you've been on, worked very closely with China, been on the committee, project management. Political economy, does it pose a problem? The Chinese have a system where they find it very easy to evict people from their land, and when they want to start a project. In India, a robust democracy, sometimes difficult to manage. So how much does that figure in your risk factor?
Well, I think I have to be a little diplomat here, I must say. But on one side, I would say that the political system in China is different than India, no doubt. And when they decide something, there is no barrier. They want to deliver. If they want to get 34 gold medals, that's what it is. They will set up all institutions, and next Beijing, the next Olympic, they will perhaps beat the United States. But at the same time, if the single party system does not take care of the stakeholders, which is the people, they will be revolt. So if they want to evacuate people to get the land, they will also work side by side to do rehabilitation, to make sure they are provided enough. So, and that's very necessary, otherwise discontent can rise.
So that happens quite smoothly there?
Well, I would say it, by and large, it happens quite smoothly. But in the Indian context, in my view, we are too much ultra-democratic. Anybody under the right
so how do
RTI right, anybody can ask. In fact, I was ultra-democracy.
So how do you have a system where you calibrate democracy? I think
I don't know.
That's a tough one. I mean, Mr. Sharma, now you have had such a vast experience running ONGC, India's premier exploration company, historically, and you've also been a very keen observer of the India's energy sector. Now, is there a national energy policy consensus in India today? I mean, you as a project manager, how would you assess India's energy successes over the last, say, 2 decades? Let's say post-reforms.
Thank you very much, Venu. I'll come to this issue, but first of all, I must say that I'm extremely happy that my two other co-panelists, they have said quite a lot what I wanted to say about the project management. First and foremost thing is a very, very meticulous planning for any mega project. It's not in fact, why mega project? You want to just build your house. Imagine how many agencies you are required to coordinate with, sequencing the work, and getting it to the finality. ONGC, we have been, I have been part of even before I came on the board and as CFO and then CEO, seen some of the mega projects getting implemented for development and redevelopment of offshore the assets. What is needed? Construction, there's a jacket construction, there's a top line construction, then there's a simultaneously the wells have to be drilled, then the well platforms have to be there, the pipelines have to be there. The synchronizing of all the activities is what is warranted for successful implementation of projects. And that is where the planning Planning is very, very essential. There's I feel it's a science. It's not that anybody with the knowledge or academic background they can do it. The project implementation has to be absolute professionalism.
Yeah.
What I noticed in ONGC,
Mr.
they
Jain
would
says
like
it's both an art and a science, both.
Yeah, you see, what the people would like the project to be commissioned yesterday. And as a result, they will put down the timelines which are not feasible to implement. As a result, first of all, when you come out with the bids, the bidders resent, there are very few offers, there's a price build-up, then there's a time overrun and cost overrun. The whole, the conceptual thing goes amiss, So one is the planning is absolutely essential. Second, the professionalism, what Mr. Jain has been, advocating over the years. He has met me a number of times. IPMA, the certified program for the project management. I feel anybody and everybody who's concerned with project implementation should be made mandatory for them to go through these programs because the implications are huge for the economy.
Do you have I have a sense, Mr. Sharma, since you've vast experience in this project management, a lot of big projects in India, whether private sector participation through or whether through public sector, there is a tendency to, as you said, at the bidding time, to give a very to get the contract to make very tall claims, and then subsequently not able to sort of meet those deadlines either in terms of cost or in terms of other technical parameters. So the first attempt is to get the project, and then there is a tendency among the bidders to imagine that things can get tweaked later. Now, this probably requires a systemic change. Mr. Nair, what do you think? Do you think here this institutional realignment and a new kind of institutional system to assess the projects rightly at the initial stage should kick in?
But there is no doubt that a more rigorous process of conceiving the projects and then getting them cleared is important. You see, we have in the public sector and in government projects a very sort of involved process of clearances. But oftentimes what we find is that there is so much pressure on the implementing agency to come up with something which they believe can be done fast. You mentioned earlier about environmental clearance. You mentioned about land acquisition problems. Well, increasingly the importance of taking care of these issues in the beginning is being realized. But there was a time when we didn't bother about it. We thought that it is for granted, and you say that environmental clearance, yes, 2 months. Land acquisition, 1 month.
The private sector is now learning that it's not happening
it is just not possible, whether it is private sector or public sector. Look, we have all gone through this process. The process of acquiring land, for instance, has changed so much over a period of time.
We'll discuss this, Mr. Nair, in greater detail, but after a small break. Please don't go away and keep watching State of the Economy. Welcome back to this special edition of State of the Economy. Mr. Nair, you have very interestingly, you are pointing out how the stakeholder expectations realignment is a key today, and there is a need to ensure in today's political economy, a lot has happened in the last 10-15 years. People have become empowered, so there is so much democracy at the grassroots level. It's not so easy to acquire land or to get environmental clearance or to get resources distributed to the stakeholders, to the producers. Now, so do we need to evolve a new kind of institutional arrangement with the help of various political participants, the political class being at the at the forefront of this process?
Well, let me say that to my mind, the first step, I think it's a process which is taking place already, to have a larger awareness of these issues at all levels. We are all learning.
It's an intense learning process.
It is a very intense learning process, and that learning process in the Indian context takes perhaps a longer time than it does take in another part of the world.
Yeah, sure.
Say there was a time when even people like us at fairly senior levels in government were not fully aware of the consequences of a particular act being done by a particular ministry or a department. It's only over a period of time that we are all becoming more and more aware of the consequences of the individual or single steps which we take. Say the impact of a large project, say promoted by the ONGC or by NDPC, the impact is large, spread over a large area and over a period of time. Now we are all in the process of learning. So you see, yes, if you look at the time it takes for getting an environmental clearance, you may be able to say that, look, it is taking a longer time. But if you try to avoid certain processes and do not involve all the stakeholders, later on you will, to my mind, face a greater problems. While the implementation is in progress, you may get into trouble. There are any number of projects which are stuck. In that manner. Therefore, to my mind, a rigorous preparation of the project and a proper assessment of the environmental and other aspects in the beginning is extremely important.
And if I am not mistaken, some 4 lakh crore worth of projects are currently in the process of being cleared in the pipeline as per the cabinet committee, investment committee.
No, that's right. That's
CCI cabinet.
CCI. So, Mr. Jain, now how do you make this whole process predictable? You were saying that sometimes participants become very impatient. They foreign investors or even domestic project builders, they feel frustrated. Now, can we make this project predictable so that they know that it will take 3 years for the entire planning process to be completed with full clearances on the table for them to actually start implementing? Is that the way to go?
Well, I think again the integration I think is the key. Project management, you can change the word integration management, risk management, uncertainty management. They're all core terminus to the world. Now, how do we make things predictable? First of all, you have to know what the risks are. And the risk averse.
So, risk mitigation is important.
And normally people don't take risk. There is a decision deficit at various levels. Because if you take a decision, you're building the future, there's a possibility and probability of going wrong. If somebody is going to audit in future about the past, let's say just for the sake of the decisions, assumptions of taking decisions, the process of taking decision, if it is in place, there should not be any problem in taking decision. We should not blame individuals for the outcome. Because outcome in future will not be 100% what we plan. We work only partial information. No project manager has a luxury to get all the information about future. Otherwise, he will be in the astrology business. He will predict everything what is going to happen. So therefore, not risk averse, take decision, write down the assumptions, and once you want to do prediction, then you may have to bring reforms, maybe single window, maybe for the sake of power plants. We do not have integrated policies. What would happen to fuel, suppliers, contractors' capabilities, how many contractors we have. Once we have an integrated map and we know what could go wrong, then the predictability will go up. And the predictability will not go up if we are only looking at parts. Project mindset, which was coined in '99 in Stockholm, when I was doing a half-a-day program. Project mindset, the key to competitiveness. The project mindset look at the whole.
But who looks at the whole? For instance, in power sector, thousands of megawatt worth of generation capacity has been created, but coal has not. Coal clearance is not there to supply fuel. Now, obviously, this is something which has to be dealt with at a larger political level, right? So, the coal ministry and the power ministry. So, these are the issues, right, Mr. Sharma?
And
gas,
gas,
can I
and
just
gas
come on
also.
that?
Gas, yeah.
Just on that very good point, I think we are moving in the direction, because when you look at the energy map, in the energy map, the suppliers, today the suppliers are in the heavy industry, coal in the Ministry of Coal, the power is in the Ministry of Power, the NTPC, the suppliers could be in the construction and other things. So I think the holistic view in terms of, and perhaps planning commission perhaps could be the place where they can look at this whole thing, pass it on to some place where they can look at holistically now 5 years, 10 years, what kind of steps we need and measure those steps. Just monitoring per se is no good, but measure those year by year, the impact what we have achieved. That is very important.
And Mr. Sharma, quickly, what is your experience of contractual obligation in the last say 10 years? There are various examples of contracts being examined retrospectively, being changed, sought to be changed retrospectively, creating a whole lot of legal battles between the private sector in PPP projects with the government. How do we resolve this? There seems to be a lack of trust somewhere, And now, how do you, in project management, how do you generate trust? How do you bring trust,
Oh, that's very, very vital, Venu. And if permit, I would like to be very candid and very vocal on this issue. In fact, after my retirement, I have been very intensely, interacting with some very, very large institutional investors, funds, and I tell you, the world, the people, they are sitting on piles of cash they want to invest into the country. What is not there? The issue of the trust. Somewhere there we have gone amiss. A contract having been signed, it's a sovereign commitment.
Sure.
How we can go back on that?
It's almost as if India is refusing to absorb foreign capital.
Today itself,
it is sitting at your doorstep.
Yeah. Today itself, there's a story on this, the Panna field. 17 years ago, 17 years earlier, this the offshore field owned by ONGC was allocated to this Premier Oil and SR Oil. The contract has not been signed 17 years. And I tell you, the potential, at least 20 to 25,000 barrels a day production we have been losing every day for the past so many years. Thing is, why the contract did not get signed? Because subsequently oil prices went up, the royalty rates went up.
Sure.
But as per the the document, the allocation, whatever the tender documents, that royalty rates, the cess rates are freezed. The bidder has right to get the contract signed on the same terms.
Sure.
But I will not go into the details of those things, but you raised the issue of the trust and the confidence. One more issue, you had first question you raised, I couldn't answer. You talked about the energy security scenario in the last 20 years. You see, in the energy sector, there are 6 ministries. And how to coordinate their efforts. So probably there's a great need, and nobody better than Mr. T.K. Nair present here to create some mechanism, some overarching the authority to coordinate efforts of these ministries, the environment ministry and everything, because the project management is the key essence for us to to succeed the economy, to progress at the rate of double digit the growth, China has been able to do because of the decision making process there.
So sir, can I throw this to Mr. Nair? So who coordinates this effort? Now it could be at the PMO, it could be, why are we shooting ourselves in the foot collectively? And how do we regenerate this trust?
Well, I think the points which Mr. Sharma raised are not confined to project A or B. There are very serious implications of what he said.
He's talking about systemic issues.
Systemic issues, and those systemic issues, they have their ramifications of a very, very diverse nature.
The political class needs to also sit together and figure it out, right?
Permit me to say, not just the political class. The political class or the people who are in positions of political authority are one part of it. But there are others. equally involved and equally concerned.
The society at large, there are
At
many
large.
stakeholders. Yeah.
You see, you talked about trust.
Yeah. The businesses are also equally responsible.
It's responsible. Now, this trust is not written on a piece of paper.
Yeah, sure. So it should permeate all stakeholders.
He gave an instance of, the certain parameters of a project,
Yeah, sure.
Got frozen at a point of time. Later on, events overtake and the parameters change. Do we still hold on to them, or do we take time to rework them? Either there is an element of cost, there is an element of time involved in it, projects get delayed.
Sure.
So that is one part of it. The other which you asked about, coordination mechanisms in government. If you ask me, in one sense, the entire activities of government centering around coordination.
Coordination, yeah.
You see, for the sake of convenience, you have a ministry dealing with petroleum and natural gas. You have another one dealing with hydropower. Okay, but then there are aspects which have got to be coordinated in each of these projects, cutting across these departmental barriers.
That's why we had that cabinet committee on investment.
You have at the higher level, you have this.
So Mr. Nair, that there's a learning process. We are trying to create these mechanisms also.
Some of them are in place already.
And hope they do produce positive outcomes in the months to come. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. T.K. Nair, Mr. Adesh Jain and R.S. Sharma. I think we had a very intense discussion around how to make national projects and project management mindset, how to make it, leverage, how to make it move. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.